So let me just start off by saying this is not about Reginald's personal life, etc., or maybe what he said in the past, or maybe if he said something that is pretty dubious in the current day and age of, politics or however the fuck that you need to speak or whatever. I don't care about any of that. But this is about Reginald and taking responsibility of his entire organization and basically the fallout of the double F drama and the fact that, first of all, both parties are idiots. Double Lift is an idiot because he doesn't understand that Reginald needs to make the decision for his entire organization, and the fact that it's like, I need to have a consistent ADC that I can lock down immediately and kind of get this shit on board for the rest of my roster. And then, of course, there is Double Lift's perspective of just like, I'm a star ADC carry. I want my shit. I want the way that it's done, etc. And he is entitled to some of that aspect as well too, but then there's also the spite aspect of just like Reginald saying like, fuck you, like I already promised all this shit and you want me to throw away this ADC lost in order to bring you in, etc. Right? So like there's obviously that entire drama, and so I don't want to negate that entire aspect, but I think what's fucked up is let's just go into the history of, I guess, Reginald and his bullshit antics, essentially, with the entire like organizational structure of this. Because when you look at what his most egregious moves are, it's obviously the coaching staff and how TSM has never had a good coaching staff ever. Like, in all of its entire iterations. And the fact that, first of all, they hired Woodbuck. I want to say that was in 2016. And this was at a time to where essentially everyone had thought like, you need to have someone that's super high elo. All coaches need to be high elo. And, that's unacceptable to have someone that isn't high elo because they won't understand the game. So therefore they can't teach the players. And so they brought in this baseball coach, and like literally he coached baseball and he coached some like Olympic athletes or some shit, something like that. And so they had brought this guy in because they were like, we want a more rigid structure. We want someone that's going to like bring up the shit, etc. And it didn't work out because no one respected him. And so, and this largely just fell apart. And so Reginald had completely like dismissed this guy and was just like, all right, fuck it. And I think he had brought in Parth to resurrect this. And you'll see this as a modus operandi of Reginald to have like, Parth, come save the fucking day. So Loco Doco is also another guy to where he's not given enough credit in TSM's history, and the fact that he was like one of the only coaches to where I think he won 2 championships with TSM, which no other coach has ever done, by the way. So I don't know why TSM fans keep shitting on Loco Doco. It's very weird. But yeah, so he was the only one that brought legitimacy or structure to TSM, in fact. And then you had constantly Parth coming in. And then, of course, you had Zix, who had came in, I want to say it was like 2019. Yeah, 2019, Zix came in. And, obviously from CLG, previously had coached that. And so they were just like, this is going to be the guy that helps us. So Zix comes in. He is clearly a more strategic coach. He's not like a hurrah coach to like build up the morale or string everything together. He's clearly the more strategic coach. And so he comes in, and obviously TSM doesn't like how he's operating. He is also put in with a lot of abrasive characters. I think it was Sven and Mithy at the time. And also Bjergsen was in the lineup, and it just wasn't a fit to match. And so, you have Reginald at the helm, who hired this fucking guy to like guide this entire roster. And it just seems very ridiculous that you would construct it this way. So that falls down under, and Parth has to once again save the entire day. And now, previously in 2021, you had Bjergsen at the helm, previous superstar mid laner, now turned coach. And maybe Reginald had thought, okay, like, let's go completely the other opposite way. It's like, you have to respect Bjergsen, especially because he's a fucking owner too, which, puts another weird fucking dynamic in the entire thing of coach versus player, because now you're talking to an owner as well too. So like, you get this weird confusion. And let's also scale back to what had happened with Zix too. I want to bring this up as well. So obviously you see the Skype message here of when Zix had said like, yo, like, TSM, has to be cancer, like, working for them, right? So it's like, all right, like, Zix obviously wasn't incredibly on board. Everyone has heard the rumors of exactly how it is to work on TSM in terms of coaching staff or just organizational staff. So it's clear that they have a very bad stigma against them. And now you have Bjergsen, which is probably the only coach that you could fucking get that might be worth their salt, right? In terms of being knowledgeable about the game, etc. And so Reginald goes with that. And it's like, well, how do you think TSM did to try and get to fucking Worlds in 2021? Obviously, they didn't. So, like, I think you could just chalk that up to failure of both coaching staff and the players themselves. So, yeah, and like, sorry, like, yeah, Bjergsen is a good player, but doesn't mean that he's going to be a good fucking coach, right? I think we can put that together now in, 2021, that just because you're a good player doesn't mean that you're going to be a good coach. So let's just put that together. So, and on top of that, you think of the entire idea of what is the root problem within all of this. I would say it's Reginald. All of us know it. All of us have already thought about it. It's clearly him at the helm that has been the consistent nature of exactly what is going wrong within this organization. And the fact that traditionally Regi has often butt in terms of, how the League of Legends team is structured or how it's run, and it seems like he just overruns his entire coaching staff, and he kind of overrides them, and therefore taking away the power of the coaching staff themselves. So he essentially like neuters his coaching staff, which is like a very fucked up thing to do. It's like, yo, you hired them, so obviously you should have faith in them. So, you can't just go in there expecting to, be the boss or the big boss. And so therefore you undermine their entire power and maybe all of what they set up in terms of how they structure their pyramid of power itself. You just fuck that entire thing up because you want to see immediate results or whatever the fuck. And all people going into TSM know that this is going to possibly be a factor, which is why joining TSM is very undesirable for a lot of different coaches. You look at Grabs is a free agent this year, right? Young Buck was a free agent before. Yamato Cannon, LS. You could have got all these different people, but you know the reason why you didn't, and I can fucking guarantee this, is because they realize that Reginald is at the helm and you will get fucked and cucked by this guy because he will constantly interrupt you and undermine your shit. So why would you ever want to join an organization like TSM? This is why TSM will not ever be a successful org here on out, because now there becomes this bad stigma against this organization that the coaching staff will always constantly be undermined. And like, it's just a doomed organization at that point. And until Reginald can prove that that is not the case, there's not going to be any competent people, at least veterans that are competent, that will want to join this organization. And that's going to fuck everything from there on down, right? That's going to be the same thing with the GM. It's going to be the head coach, and that's going to be the assistant coach. And so why do you think that you have such dysfunctional things past that entire bracket? You know, like you're not going to have the most perfect, clean-cut roster because of, you know, the GM, or because of your lack of a head coach or a competent head coach. Like, essentially you're fucking your entire organization. And it's weird that Reginald just doesn't notice this. And you notice that it's constantly that the coaches and the junglers are to blame within the entire organization of TSM. Why? Because those guys have a lot of agency, and you can't blame Bjergsen. So it's like, it becomes this ultimatum from, you know, the higher up, which is Reginald. So I think entirely this organization is it's going to take a long time to repair, and it's going to come with bad player acquisition too. Not in the sense of awful, you know, player acquisition. They still have their brand somewhat. But I think Bjergsen leaving kind of says it all, and the fact that there is really not a large way to repair this org other than time. And time of, you know, Reginald to say like, hey, I'm hands off, I won't fuck with your guys' shit. Like, you're hiring the head coach, or rather the president is, like, who knows who fucking runs this organization. But fact of the matter is that people need to be convinced that they have a lot of autonomy within TSM. But until then, this name is kind of tarnished. And that's kind of shitty, because it is one of the premier organizations within TSM, or within the LCS rather. So it's difficult to stomach, and I think TSM fans are going to find this more and more as a reality, and more of Reginald to be somewhat of a liability. And if anything, you know, in like, TSM fans are very famous for, you know, being I guess the most aggressive in all of LCS, or the Western audience. And the fact that what you should be aggressive on is Reginald to just tell him to shut the fuck up. Let, you know, if he hires a head coach, he should believe in that guy and let him lead shit like how it should be led. Kind of like how Jack did with Reaper. You probably want the same thing to happen. So, I just think Reginald has clearly overstepped. This is the reason why TSM is tanking down, and he needs to reevaluate his situation as far as, you know, his own position is concerned in terms of being CEO, and just reevaluate exactly how TSM is operated, and to leave a little bit more breathing room for upper management. Because at the end of the day, that's why you hire upper management. You hire them to manage other people. So that means that you trust them to then hire other people and to manage other things. And if you don't believe in those people, you completely collapse everyone below those people. So I think he's completely running this shit backwards, and that is very evident as to how TSM is actually crumbling currently within this day and age.